Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, August 14th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking college football again today, and the topic is Mizzou and the SEC, with a little Kansas State to finish things up. Mizzou beat writer Souichi Terada stops by to update us on the Tigers and the conference that, well, never doubted that it would have a college football season. After a break, you'll hear from Mizzou coach Eli Drinkwitz. After Drinkwitz, we're going to play some audio from Kansas State coach Chris Klieman. We intended to do that on yesterday's show, but it's been a busy week in college football, so it got pushed to today. But let's get started with Souichi Terada. So, Souichi, going into the week, I was wondering who was going to make news from a conference perspective, and turns out it was the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and really the Big 12 when you get down to it, because the SEC and the ACC, really all they did was put out statements on Monday and Tuesday saying, "Hey, we're good," essentially. So, it is onward and upward for the SEC and Mizzou, is it not?
Yeah, it's the SEC football train just keeps chugging along. I actually just got the media schedule for how Mizzou fall training camp is going to look like, and that was kind of weird, getting that email on a Wednesday, one day after the Big Ten and the Pac-12 decides to shut it down. It's just business as usual in the SEC, and I think maybe hard and seasoned veteran SEC fans, I guess there isn't too many of those in the Mizzou base just because of when they joined, but I think maybe SEC fans will kind of look at that and be like, hey, that's kind of what we expect in this conference. College football is king, but it really is weird seeing two Power 5 conferences, including the MAC and the Mountain West and many other FCS conferences now. They've kind of hunkered down and said, we're going to try this in the spring, whereas the SEC, especially, Greg Sankey has come out and said, and Eli Drinkwitz has kind of followed up his lead in the sense that they're going to wait it out. That's what they did for the schedules. That's what they did pretty much, every step of the way. So that's just kind of how it's going now, and it's interesting to see how long this can last. But kickoff is more than a month away, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, they're not in the follow mode. They were going to they kind of created their path over the summer, and it kind of didn't matter what the pandemic numbers were in the states of the footprint of the SEC. It was never not a possibility of playing football. It seemed to me, I look, they have their medical experts just like every conference does. I just think that, the SEC, the ACC, and now the Big 12 and the others that are in the group of five, they looked at they all had access to the same information, but they judged the risk assessment differently. And so the SEC and ACC and Big 12 are scheduled to start a season in September, mid-September for the Big 12, late September for the SEC, and it's full go. Now, look, it was earlier this week when sides were being taken about the college football season. There was a lot of let's go, let's play from the SEC, from the ACC, especially when it came to getting the message to the Big 12, which was the last of the three power conferences that decided to play. But there is still more than a month to go before the first Mizzou and SEC game. It's not 100% guarantee it's going to happen. Students are going to be back on campus, and there's still some obstacles to overcome here.
Yeah, and Blair, I'm glad you brought up the students are back, and I think that's pretty much the biggest thing. I mean, Jim Sterk essentially called that the X factor, and I think people really aren't taking into consideration that, I went on a radio show the other day, but college campuses are kind of gross in the sense that, you're jamming in, tens of thousands of kids who have never lived by themselves, especially these incoming freshmen, and then you kind of stick them into dorms and everything. Like, I remember I got sick like every fall of my college life. I don't think, that's kind of the biggest thing for me. And that's also what, the SEC and Greg Sankey are saying in terms of this is why we wanted to push back the season to September 26th, because Mizzou students are starting to, move into residential halls, or every time I go to Walmart, I see more and more college age kids who kind of look like me. And once they're back on campus, and if there is, an outbreak on the football team because of these students coming back, and regardless of how, you have 118 or so, 120 kids, and then they're gonna go mix and mingle with the students, and you don't want them to, but that's a reality in college classes. So once you see that, and once you give them some time in terms of the football season or the football players, and see if there is an outbreak, and maybe you can get that under control and say, early September. Let's say, however many Mizzou football players get infected with COVID-19 because students are coming back, normal students are coming back. And then by early September, you kind of get that under control and you get those numbers down. And then you're kind of feeling a little better about yourself for a September 26th kickoff. So I think that's the biggest thing right now. And administrators are going to be looking at is that, hey, if we can have students and we can keep this under control in early September, then, that's when I think you'll start to feel really good about a football season. But that's the big if, I think, that administrators are kind of looking at.
Well, a couple things here. First of all, you're getting sick each fall of college. That wasn't too long ago for you. I mean, you're only a couple years removed from that from that world. And also, college football had a little bit of a trial run with this in June when athletes started coming back to campus for for practicing and working out and just being under the college team and program supervision. And not every school handled that particularly well. Kansas State was a program that had a little bit of an outbreak, and LSU, Texas, Clemson. We were hearing, and those were just the ones we heard from. I imagine there were more that didn't get the news out. So those schools had to deal with it, and this is without other students being on campus, or at least not like we know in the fall semester. We were talking to Chris Kleiman at Kansas State earlier this week, and he was saying, "Look, he was happy. It was terrible that they went through that in June. I think they had 14 total who had the COVID-19." But it was instructive for him in the program to have gone through that experience, and a great lesson to the athletes who were out playing video games together or at a party together, and brought brought it into a team situation, and they had to shut down their workouts for a week. At least with the timing of the SEC, they can go through that early, maybe have a little experience of it, but and they don't play until the end of September. So I guess my feeling is, Souichi, and maybe you feel this way too. I think the athletes have an awareness that they've got to take a responsibility here, and the success or even the existence of a season depends on how they respond outside of the football program. Once they're in, when they're in the football program and they're in meetings and practices, they seem well protected. They're in their bubble, right? But once they leave that bubble, it's kind of up to them to be healthy.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest challenge, right? And to Mizzou's credit, and Mizzou should get credit for this. Drinkwitz said they had a less than 3% positivity rate for COVID-19. That's a great rate, obviously. The biggest thing too that they keep pointing at is that transmission hasn't been because of players being in facilities, but more so, just doing everyday life, whether that be going to the grocery store or, just doing normal things that normal college students do, even during a pandemic. So I think those are all positive things. Drinkwitz obviously was being very cautious still, just because things can change. But yeah, I mean I'm just so skeptical of this working, just because this just what we know about COVID-19, and I think Eli Drinkwitz has mentioned this, and administrators know this. Like, it only really takes one bad apple. I mean, you look at a team like Cleveland, the Indians, and MLB, and you got pitcher is Mike Clevenger. He went out to Chicago, and then he was with the team. His teammate got caught, and then he was still kind of mingling. And you have a teammate who has leukemia. Your manager isn't exactly healthy with Tito, and it's just who's to say, and God forbid that Mizzou has a player like that, but when you have 120 kids and that's even less than 1%, right? 1% of
Yeah.
1% of people could take this bad, and that's still one person at the very least on Mizzou just by probability, and it's just so many things, and I think that's one of the biggest difficulties with football in general that you're probably going to see with the NFL, and that with this many people, it really does only take one person to bring it back and kind of ruin the whole thing, and that's what I look at and say, as much as you can create a bubble-like atmosphere with college football facilities, and because they are in the facilities for so long, whether that be getting workouts in, meetings, practices. At the end of the day, like, you're gonna have some free time at the at night, and it's where you go from here, and then just mingling with girlfriends or friends or whatever at night. So it really is such a difficult scenario, and it's hard to make college students just under those strict rules just because of how old they are, in 18 to 22. Like, that's you want to have fun then, and in college it's kind of a rite of passage in some ways. So I'm not very jealous of the decision makers and the players who all have to deal with that.
Exactly. Okay. Hey, I don't think we have talked since the new SEC schedule was released. Remind me just how easy Missouri got it in the and in the new structure.
Yeah, so Missouri got the reigning national champion LSU, preseason ranked number 5 by the coaches poll, and number 3 Alabama, Nick Saban's Alabama. So, oh man, I will say, and I wrote this, it's not as bad as Arkansas' schedule, because Arkansas got Georgia and Florida, but Arkansas also plays, Bama, LSU, Texas A&M, and Auburn. And then the crossover game is Tennessee, who isn't looking too bad. So it could always be worse. I'm not sure Mizzou fans were thrilled with that, but at the end of the day, that is kind of life in the SEC, in the sense that you don't play 3 other teams in the SEC, and that would be Mississippi, Auburn, and Texas A&M. And Auburn and Texas A&M are both ranked in the top 15. So if you switch out, a Bama for an Auburn or a Texas A&M, or vice versa, you'd still get a pretty premier SEC West opponent, and that's kind of what happens when your annual crossover game is Arkansas, who has not been doing too hot, not winning an SEC game for 2 years, and you got Mississippi State, who by all projections is one of the worst teams in the SEC West. So, it's a brutal draw. I think Mizzou fans, obviously and rightfully, are going to be not very happy about that, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what you get when you sign up for the SEC, and I think that's just kind of collateral damage, I guess.
Right. Well, we should mention here too that one thing that has been lost in the schedule was the Arrowhead Stadium game. The Tigers were going to play Arkansas at Arrowhead Stadium on the traditional Friday after Thanksgiving, and of course that's not going to happen now. So.
Yeah, Jim Sterk said they were hoping to get that rescheduled, but obviously with COVID, the Chiefs have other things to deal with, much like Mizzou does.
Indeed. Okay, we're going to hear from Eli Drinkwitz after a break, and we're also going to play some sound from Kansas State coach Chris Kleiman. We planned to do that on yesterday's show with Callis Robinette, but Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, had his news conference, and we played some sound from that. So we bumped K-State sound into today. So this is where we say goodbye to Souichi Terada, who covers the Tigers for the Kansas City Star. Souichi, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Blair.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Eli, with these guys, going went through about 3 months kind of without the structure that maybe they've always had. How much of a concern, I guess, right when they came back was conditioning and, these kids being at the level they're normally in the summer? And then how concerned are you about getting guys in game shape, because it's been a little bit different the last few months?
All the above. I mean, there's been such a, obviously it was voluntary. We had great attendance during voluntary from people that were here, but you also had the people that were in quarantine for 14 days or contact traced for 14 days. So you had some people that were here, some people that were pulled out for 14 days, some people that were pulled out for 10 days, some people that went out of town for the weekend, so they had to miss 5 days. And so, again, that's why I said thanks to Zach. He did an outstanding job of getting these guys into some sort of shape. Are we where we would normally be? No, absolutely not. I'm extremely concerned, and I've told everybody they have to be ready. Okay, they have to be ready. We're fixing to play a 10-game SEC schedule. We're only going to get 25 practices over the next 40-something days. Andrew probably knows the exact number, but I think it's 45 days. And so there's not going to be a lot of back-to-back and conditioning. We got to give them 2 days off a week. So it's going to be interesting to see, what kind of shape and nobody's ever done this before. Nobody's played 10 SEC games before. So it's going to be a battle of wills. But I like our team. I like the flexibility they've shown. I like the mental fortitude they've shown. So we'll be up to the challenge. But there's some unknowns there, Gabe.
Next question comes from Colin O'Brien from Jeff City. Colin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned not bragging about the test results inside your building, and I don't want to get into the fearing the unknown too much, but is there a certain level of positive test results within the building, within the program, that is considered an outbreak that would then cause you to suspend the season? Like, do you know what that hard and fast number is, or is it just completely played by ear?
Yeah, it's definitely not played by ear. It's played by experts. It's played by Dr. Witt, who's the leading epidemiologist for the state of Missouri, who has been our medical task force liaison to the SEC task force, who's guiding not only our response, but MU's response, MU Health's response, led also with Dr. Bohan, our team physician. So it's up to them. It's not up to me. It has nothing to do with me. It would have to do with Boone County Health. We've submitted all of our guidance to Dr. Witt. He's been in charge, and Dr. Henderson have been in charge of our repopulation committee and for the athletic department and how we're coming back. We've been in contact. I was in contact with Dr. Witt on Monday on just about everything that's going on. And so I submit to his authority, and our plan that's in place has been endorsed by him. And I thank him for his leadership and his guidance through this whole thing. But I don't have calling a hard and fast number that says if we get to this, we can't do this or that. I think that would be up to the administration and to health experts. I'm a football coach.
Next question comes from Harold Kuntz. Harold, go ahead.
Hey, Eli, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
I know you've kind of talked a little bit about this, but when it comes to hearing that news from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 that they're not playing yesterday, and then they're all going toward different medical advice, does it kind of concern you as a head coach when you're hearing different areas and different regions and different medical people all saying different advice? And does that make you kind of concerned about your the advice you're getting going forward or anything of that nature?
No. I trust my doctors. I trust MU Health. I think, when you're talking about doctors, I mean, we've all gotten second opinions on things. If somebody goes to this doctor and doesn't like that opinion or wants a different form of treatment, they go to another one. That's actually very common from what I understand about medicine. You can get different doctors to do different surgeries on any type of thing. You've got different doctors who treat different diseases. Again, I think Dr. Witt's one of the best in the world. And I know he's one of the best in the state of Missouri. I feel very confident in the information. I've been on calls with leading epidemiologists in the country. I've been on calls with leading cardiologists in the country. I've been on calls with local doctors who I feel very confident in the information that we've gotten. I feel very confident in our plan. I feel very comfortable with the way that we're doing our testing, tracing. I feel very comfortable with the information we're putting. Look, nothing in life is zero risk. Nothing in life is zero risk. And so I understand that. Our team understands that. I've told our team several times, I have your back. If you tell me you want to opt out, I have your back. If you tell me you want to play, I have your back. That's my job. And so whatever they want to do, whatever they feel comfortable doing is what we're going to do. And it's an individual choice. Individual choice. The players that are here have said that they want to play and they feel comfortable and they feel confident. I shouldn't even say comfortable. They feel confident in the plans that we have in place and the information that we're giving them and in the testing and the protocols and the things we're doing. And I'm not unsympathetic to the fact that there's risks. I've got 3 daughters of my own that are going back to school in August. And I had to choose whether or not I was going to send them to in-person classes or online. And I totally understand the risk. I understand how challenging that is. And I had to make a choice along with my wife on what we were going to do. And we made that choice, and we're comfortable with that choice, and we'll continue to move forward. And so everybody has to make choices in life. And for us, our choice is faith, not fear, hope, not worry. And that's what we're moving forward with for me and my family personally. And again, for our football team, I've got their back. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable, wants to opt out, they are still part of this football team, and we will make sure that they're well taken care of mentally and physically. And if they do want to play football, then we're going to say they're a part of our football team. We're going to take care of them mentally and physically.
Another question for you quickly with the schedule. I know when it came out, you see Alabama and LSU. You kind of embraced that challenge?
I chose to play. I chose to coach in the SEC because I wanted to coach against the best. Everybody's caught up in Alabama, LSU. Well, the other 3 options are pretty stinking good football teams too. So, it ain't like you're going to dodge somebody, I guess we could have picked a Pac-12 or a Big Ten team and not had anybody, play. We played a really good football team. Those 2 teams are really good. They got great coaches, great players. They've been in the playoff. It's a great challenge for our players and our team, and we accept that challenge. Again, like I said, I chose to coach at Mizzou because I wanted to coach against the best, challenge myself against the best, and our players chose to play in the SEC and play at Mizzou because they wanted that same challenge. And so, crud, yeah, embrace it. What else you going to do, man?
Next one comes from Dave Matter from the St. Louis Post. Dave, go ahead.
Eli, I know this is all unprecedented. We've never had a season like this, but is it bad? Is it unhealthy for college football that it's August 10th and we've got 3 conferences that are ready to go and wanting to move forward and 2 that are out, and we have no idea if there's going to be spring football for those conferences, or there's just the discord, the disunity, the no organization. How do you view that as someone with a central role in college football?
Honestly, Dave, I hadn't put a whole lot of thought into it because I got a job to do here at Mizzou, and I've got, dadgum near 200 people in my organization with players and trainers and managers and coaches and recruiting departments that I'm in charge of. And I'm trying to just make sure that we're taken care of on a day-to-day basis and haven't had a whole lot of time to think big picture. I don't know. I did say the other day in a radio interview that the SEC is the leaders in college football for a reason. And I think Greg Sankey has done an outstanding job of providing steady leadership. He's put a plan in place. He's not wavered from that plan. He said that he was always going to take his time in making decisions. He was deliberate in backing the season up to the 26th to see if a spike would occur when students returned to campus, and would we be able to navigate through that spike and continue to play football. He's been adamant in saying that, he doesn't believe the virus is going anywhere. And so it wasn't a matter of being able to necessarily postpone to the spring, and not sure why that would be better. that entails a whole lot of other issues because of the NFL and all that kind of stuff. So, I respect what Greg Sankey's done. I respect the leadership of our administration here. And I'll say the rest of the SEC coaches have done an outstanding job of being on the same page, implementing the things that they've been asked to do from our conference in order to give us the best possible opportunity to play. Would it benefit us if there was one singular voice for the entire college football world? Y'all are trying to get me on Twitter on that one, so I don't know if I want to say that one way or the other, but I will say I'm extremely proud of Greg Sankey. I'm proud to be associated with the SEC, and I'm proud of the way that they've handled this situation, regardless of how it turns out. I can't believe we're looking at our watch on August 12th, and we've got people that are saying we're not playing football on September 26th. That's like that's like the St. Louis Cardinals canceling the doubleheader on Sunday because it's forecasted to rain, and we're talking about it being on Wednesday. That's just crazy to me. But I'm a football coach, so I don't know. I'm a football coach. Does that answer your question, Dave? Did that get me in trouble or no? Did you get me in trouble or no? Yeah? Okay.
That was Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz. Here is Kansas State coach Chris Kleiman. We spoke to him on Tuesday, and he was asked about the lessons learned by the program when a small outbreak occurred upon the players returning to campus over the summer.
I think that was a blessing in disguise, probably, because it was in June, and the kids that did test positive all had mild to no symptoms or asymptomatic. So I know that we were fortunate there that nobody was really sick, but they did learn some lessons, whether it's 8 guys getting together to play video games or go out and have 8 or 10 guys at a pool or something. I think they learned that, nobody's going to be immune to this. If you are in the wrong situation and don't protect yourself, you have potential to get the virus. And so, you got to remember when we did that in June, we had everybody test and everybody was negative. And then it only takes one, and we don't even know where that one came from. Was it somebody that came into town from out of town? Did he get it in town? We don't know. You can speculate on all that stuff, but we just know one turned into 3, turned into 5, to turn into a dozen or something. And so our kids were like, oh wow, this really can. So then when we sent them home and brought them back, when they came back, they quarantined before we went back into our workouts, and you could tell that the guys were really cautious about making sure that they weren't the guy that was going to that would be getting somebody sick. And obviously we had a really good success in July because we were able to start everybody at practice in August, and because everybody was a negative test on that first August testing. And we full well know that we test everybody tomorrow. We may have somebody that has to sit out, or a group of guys, because, one kid gets it and maybe 3 of his roommates have to sit out. Those things, I think you're always going to have contact tracing, but we feel more confident and comfortable that if I'm protecting myself at a practice with my mask and face guard and stuff, that I wouldn't be a contact trace.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Souichi Terada for stopping by and talking Mizzou and the SEC. Links to Souichi Terada's stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands and still a good one. $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes the Sports Extra that comes with the e-edition. There's 48 additional pages of national sports coverage today. Here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus extra news, sports, and business coverage that come with the e-edition. It's like a Sunday newspaper every day. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Friday with another episode.